Good afternoon, everyone. Our guest speaker today is Andrew Michelmore, the Chair of the Minerals Council of Australia. Andrew studied chemical engineering at the University of Melbourne, graduating with first-class honours, before beginning his career at Western Mining Corporation, where he later became the Chief Executive Officer in 2002. He was awarded the Victorian Rhodes Scholarship and went on to study politics, philosophy and economics at the University of Oxford. An outstanding rower, Andrew represented Australia at the World Rowing Championships in 1974, 75 and 79. As a member of the lightweight coxless fours, he won a gold medal in 1974 and a bronze medal in the following year. He was stroke for the Oxford crew that won the Oxford-Cambridge boat race in 1977 and 1978, and was president of the Oxford University Boat Club. His distinguished career in the metals and mining industry spans more than 35 years. He has held senior leadership roles in Australia and overseas, including as CEO of Zinifex Limited, Oz Minerals Limited and MMG Limited. He also served as CEO of N+ in London and Russia, managing energy, power and aluminium assets, and throughout his career he's been committed to improving health, safety and environmental outcomes in the mining sector. Andrew is currently Chair of Century Aluminium and Chair of the Council of Melbourne Grammar School. He previously chaired Jean Hales for Women's Health from 1997 until 2024, and has used his extensive business experience to support a number of not-for-profit organisations. A strong advocate for sustainable development, he's worked extensively in developing communities around the world and is committed to inspiring confidence to create a healthier future for all women. In recognition of his leadership in the mining industry, he was awarded an Order of Australia in 2017. A long-time supporter of the Melbourne Mining Club, Andrew has been a keynote speaker at events in Melbourne in 2003 representing WMC, in 2008 representing Zinifex, and 2012 representing MMG, and also in London in July 2016 as CEO of MMG. Members and guests, please warmly welcome Andrew Michelmore, AO, back to the Melbourne Mining Club.
Thank you, Andrew, for that introduction, and to the Melbourne Mining Club for the opportunity to speak today. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we gather on today and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I would also like to acknowledge Melbourne Mining Club's co-patrons, Lee Clifford and Hugh Morgan, whose leadership continues the legacy of Sir Avi Parbo in promoting our industry. It's a privilege to address a room filled with leaders who drive our industry and our economy. We meet today at a pivotal moment, one that will shape the course of our industry, our economy, and our nation for many years to come. The post-World War II geopolitical order that has underpinned decades of prosperity is shifting beneath our feet. Global supply chains, once reliable but now fragile, are being redrawn. Trade is no longer simply about supply and demand, it's a strategic weapon. We have entered a new era of economic nationalism. With every uncertain headline, with every protectionist push, the question before us becomes clearer. Will we retreat or will we fight? For Australia, this is more than a challenge. It's an urgent call to action. It's resilience that built this nation through booms, through downturns, through world wars and economic crises. Of course, the question is not whether we have the resilience. We've demonstrated that before. Rather, it's whether we have the resolve to fight for the policies that encourage strength, not weakness, growth, not stagnation, progress, not decline. Perhaps we can begin by acknowledging a fundamental truth. Minerals are not merely commodities, they are the lifeblood of all modern economies. We are heading into a period of greater uncertainty. The global economy is weak and vulnerable to downside risk, and inflationary pressures persist. While commodity markets are accustomed to commercial volatility, this geopolitical uncertainty adds a new dimension of risk to investment. If the world's major economies slow, the effects will be felt in Australia. Recent escalations in tariffs and trade tensions signal a shift towards a more fragmented global economy, one where the free flow of goods and capital cannot be taken for granted. Against this backdrop, our industry is bracing for a more volatile operating environment. This is why we must be in the strongest possible position to weather these disruptions. That means having the right policy settings to encourage investment, to lift productivity, and to ensure that Australia remains the supplier of choice for the markets. It means rejecting policies that add uncertainty to an already uncertain world. Mining has always faced peaks and troughs, but now we prepare in times of strength. But how we prepare in times of strength determines how well we will withstand those downturns. Now is the time to reinforce our economic foundations. Now is the time to lead, not lag, through the coming storm. Because if we don't, others will. Despite the challenges, there is a cause for optimism. Australia has the resources, the expertise, and the global reputation to remain a powerhouse in the world economy. But Australia must act now. The trend is clear. While mining continues to be the backbone of the economy, investment is stalling. Australia is living off its past investments rather than building for the future. Mining has accounted for 30% of Australia's capital investment over the last decade, yet real net capital stock has plateaued at a time when it should be surging. Nominal investment growth is largely being driven by rising project costs and sustaining capital, not by new project developments. Foreign direct investment in Australia's mining from OECD sources has collapsed, falling from $50 billion US in 2013 to just $7.5 billion in 2022. Meanwhile, Canada, our direct competitor for mining capital, has maintained strong OECD investment flows, with new FDI into Canadian mining exceeding $10 billion US in each year of 2021 and 22. We hear a lot about the value of projects coming through the pipeline, but the reality is that only 1 in 20 major resource projects in Australia progresses from feasibility to final investment decision each year. And even those that do, Standard & Poor's estimates that the average lead time to production is now 18 years, up from just 13 years for mines that started 15 years ago. The system is slowing, not improving. Australia is a resource-rich country, but the investment environment is making us a riskier bet for capital. And in the sector where investors have choices, money is mobile. On a recent trip overseas, I met with a global investor who put it bluntly to me. Why would we look to invest in Australia right now? Your energy costs are too high, your construction costs are out of control, Productivity is going backwards, and your regulatory environment is unpredictable. We're now looking at South Africa, and South America. That is the perception we are up against. We hear a lot from policymakers about the importance of our industry, how vital mining is to our economic strength, our sovereignty, our security. But too often, the rhetoric does not match reality. The Prime Minister has rightly acknowledged several times during his term that a robust minerals sector is essential to our national economic resilience, and yet we see policy settings that actively undermine our success. This is not just about policy misalignment, this is about risk, because once investment leaves, it does not easily return. If there is one issue that should define this federal election, it's productivity. It's the single driver of long-term living standards. It is what determines whether businesses invest, wages rise, and Australia is a competitive trading nation. And right now, we're falling behind. Labour productivity growth in Australia has flatlined at 0.4% a year over the last decade. GDP per hour worked is no higher today than it was in 2016. That is nearly a decade of lost progress. The result, as we have all felt ourselves, lower real wages, slower growth, a cost base that keeps rising. There is no issue more important to Australia's future, yet it remains an afterthought in national debate. This cannot continue. Whoever forms government after the election must put productivity at the very top of the agenda. Productivity is not about working harder and longer. It's about working smarter. It's about making every hour of work more valuable by creating an environment where business can thrive, innovation is rewarded, and people have the skills to adapt and succeed. There is one sector that's always driven productivity growth in this country: mining. Mining is the most capital-intensive, high-output and globally competitive industry we have. It has been the engine of national income growth, the largest driver of investments and the foundation of our export strength. Yet despite this, policy settings are holding the industry back at a time when we should be unlocking its full potential. Any government serious about lifting productivity must start with the industry that delivers it at scale. Again, mining. This means fixing the industrial relations system. The mining sector has operated for years under a framework that encourages flexibility, rewards hard work, and delivers strong wages. Yet now we are seeing a concerted effort to dismantle this system, dragging us back to an era of strikes, inefficiency, and industrial confrontation. We've seen this story before. In the 1980s, industrial disputes crippled the Pilbara and other regions, forcing a painful reset of workplace relations. It took strong leadership from government, industry, and union leaders working together to restore stability and ensure that Australia's mining remained globally competitive. We now risk going back to those days, except this time we may not get a second chance. If the government wants sustained wage growth and long-term investment, it cannot be designing an IR system that increases costs and uncertainty, making both harder to achieve. Lifting productivity also means taking tax reform seriously. Continued speculation about increased resource taxes is fueling sovereign risk concerns amongst investors. More tax does not drive productivity, rather it drives investment offshore. Investment decisions are now made with a long-term, they've always been made, with long-term confidence in mind. Stability in tax policy is not just a desirable, it's an essential. But tax stability alone is not enough. the length and complexity of project approvals in Australia have become a major barrier to investment. The reality is stark. A mining project here takes twice as long to commence as it does in Canada. Therefore, it should be no surprise that investors will choose Canada. It's that simple. There is an urgent need to streamline approval processes, reduce duplication across jurisdictions, and establish a clear regulatory pathway for major resource projects. At the same time, we must focus on the industries that will drive productivity in the decades ahead. One of the greatest opportunities before us in Australia's role is supplying the world with critical minerals. The minerals industry is key to achieving a net zero carbon future. Without mining and minerals processing, there is no clean energy transition. These minerals, including copper, nickel, lithium, cobalt, and rare earths, are essential for the technology that will power the future: electric vehicles, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing. But without the right policy settings, investment in critical minerals will go elsewhere. Governments around the world are aggressively incentivising new supply chains. We must ensure that Australia is a foundation player in the global supply chain. The world is not short on demand for minerals, but investment is cautious. Capital will only flow to countries that provide the right environment to do business. Energy should be Australia's greatest advantage. Yet somehow, we have ended up with some of the highest industrial energy costs in the developed world. High energy costs are killing our competitiveness. They are driving investment away from Australia, forcing businesses to shut down and weakening our manufacturing and resources sector. Electricity prices in Australia have tripled in the past decade. Gas prices have quadrupled. And unlike the United States, where prices increased 2 to 3-fold, caused by the war in Ukraine, but are now showing signs of stabilising back within 30% of where they were before the war. Australia's energy costs remain stubbornly high. Yes, we did double, triple, quadruple, but we haven't returned. We just keep going up and up, making us less competitive. Industrial users are being forced to consider shutting down or moving offshore. We are seeing the consequences already. Orica, the world's largest provider of explosives and chemicals for mining, has warned that energy prices in Australia are so high they may increase their investments in the United States instead. Incitec Pivot shut its Australian fertiliser plants in 2022 because of the high gas costs. Plastic manufacturer Qenos has collapsed. And now Oceania Glass, Australia's only glass manufacturer, employing 260 people at its Dandenong plant in Melbourne's outer suburbs, has shut its doors after 169 years of operation. My home state of Victoria was once a powerhouse of manufacturing, a state that built its industries, drove exports, and created high-paying jobs. Now, Victoria is fast running out of low-cost gas supplies and planning to shut down its century-long Latrobe Valley brown coal advantage without a viable, affordable replacement in sight. Crazy. The state seems blissfully unaware of the rapid decline of its foundation energy strengths. Plans to develop offshore wind are in disarray. Land conflicts over solar, wind, and transmission projects are stalling progress. And after discouraging gas development for over a decade, Victoria is now pushing for expensive LNG import terminals and seeking costly gas from northern states when it could have developed its own supply right here. This is a warning for the rest of Australia. Energy must be an advantage, not a liability. But right now, Australia is making it more difficult to justify new investment. That must change. The Minerals Council of Australia has been warning for years that policy settings must encourage investment, not drive it away. These challenges are not new, nor are they hypothetical. They are real, they are urgent, and they demand action now. Ladies and gentlemen, the choices our leaders make today will shape Australia's future. Mining has always been at the heart of our national prosperity, and it must continue to be. But prosperity is not guaranteed. Investment is not guaranteed. Competitiveness is not guaranteed. We cannot afford to be complacent, not when other nations are moving faster, cutting red tape and making it easier to do business. We cannot afford to be silent, not when the decisions being made today will determine whether Australia remains a mining powerhouse or becomes a nation that watches from the sidelines. The solutions are clear. We need policy settings that encourage investment, not drive it away. We need an industrial relations system that promotes productivity, not punishes it. We need energy policies that make us competitive, not unviable. Australia should be the world's preferred mining and investment destination, as it used to be. A country that backs its resources sector, embraces opportunity, and secures its future prosperity. But this will not happen unless we demand it. Everyone in this room has a role to play. The messages we send to policymakers, to media, to investors, even our employees, matter. We must be relentless in making the case for a globally competitive, investment-friendly and productivity-driven mining sector. Because if we don't, who will? We have built one of the strongest mining industries in the world. Now we must fight to keep it that way. Australia has never been a country that settles for second best. We shouldn't start now. Let's make sure that the messages are heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now to questions from the floor. If you're asking a question, please wait for the microphone, stand so we can see you, and state your name and affiliation.
I think I've stunned them.
Hello, Dave Clark from GHD. Well done, Andrew. You covered some really important ground through your keynote address. The other Andrew made mention of your health, safety and environment passion, I guess, as part of the introduction. I think we've got some additional challenges that may compound some of those you covered off today, reflecting on the TSF catastrophic failure in Zambia only recently. I think credit to AusIMM in terms of upskilling and professional certification around tailings management, MCA through the Towards Sustainable Mining initiatives, ICMM and other key stakeholders in terms of our new global standard. But it reflects on us all, I guess, as an industry, as organisations and across all of the regions. So I'm just interested in any thoughts you might have or advice around what else we need to do to avoid such events. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good question and comment, thank you. I've been involved for well over a decade, 2 decades, ICMM, MCA, working on these issues. And right across the globe, I can tell you the major CEOs, the CEOs of major companies are doing the groundwork to set the standards. The issue is, having set the standards, we then need to ensure that they're actually fulfilled. But I think one of the issues we find is that over time, over change of owners, the original design and the approach taken, which was very good, gets diluted. And I think it's this continually being aware of it, rather than we've got a tailings dam we can just keep filling. We need to be out there actively, like we do with safety. Go back, analyse, check, are the things in place? But again, it's up to the industry to ensure that we all take the best learnings out of those practices and standards.
Hello. Thanks for your speech. It was very, very interesting. I'm Lewis from the Ballarat student chapter, and it made me think about the McPhillamys decision last year, what you spoke about in New South Wales. So I was wondering what your opinion is on how impactful that is and how those sort of things can be repaired, and then for the everyday person who's not in this industry, they probably think, oh, one less mine, it's not a big deal. But how are we going to help them understand how important that is?
Very good question. Yeah, it's just one mine. We just shut it. This is the reason. After all the work that was done over probably a decade, meeting all the requirements, supplying all the information, everything. And then at a whim, someone signs it away. That is a really bad message for Australia and the rest of the world. We've grown our industry on foreign direct investment. We don't have the capital in Australia to invest and build the big plants. Tens of billions of dollars needed for that. So in terms of getting foreign investment, they want to know that they will back something, and yes, we follow all the standards, all the requirements, everything. They want to know that if we do that, they will be able to continue with that approval. I think the same we've seen on the Northwest Shelf with the extension of the gas production. It's taken 6 years delivering all the requirements were met 6 years ago, and yet still waiting for a decision. Again, that is a very, very bad sovereign risk message to investors and also to the customers, like the Japanese who need the gas and have committed to taking Australian gas to Japan. It is a very important point.
Atell, White, Bell, Potter, Andrew. Why do so many major leaders of mining groups and big companies pussyfoot around these issues and not really get out there and have a go?
I've got to choose my words carefully. Unfortunately, I think in the current environment, if you do stand up, the government will play the person and not the issue. We've seen that in a lot of places. We've seen it with Mike Henry and BHP being castigated for standing up and stating the facts. And that, for me, is a very retrogressive step. Where are we about good debate, good discussion? Let's deal with facts and don't play the person. I think we've seen over the last decade CEOs hesitate because they don't want to be in the press, they don't want to get heavied, and they're concerned that for their shareholders that if this has an impact on their business, then they might be at fault for it. But on the other hand, we have people here in this room who have stood up over decades and actually taken the debate into the public arena, and I think that's what we need. We definitely need the debate in the public arena, and let's deal with facts, not with jibes. I'll probably get shot later.
Dr. David Collins, Synergetics Consulting Engineers. Andrew, I had the privilege of hearing you tell the story at my son's rowing club, that the reason why you're so successful is because of the number of times that you lost your rowing races. And I'm not sure if you remember this, it was in Geelong and at Geelong College, and that went over very well, and because they'd been on a losing streak. Is it fair to say that Australia's on a losing streak right now, and what can we use from your experience to help us out of it?
Look, I think I did a similar talk to a group of graduating students, and I had an acronym for it, and the first one was L, and it was basically to get out there and give things a go, and it might fail, you might lose. That is only a loss if you don't learn from it. And I think what we need to do, and I know MCA is doing a lot of work in it, is actually going through, so what's gone wrong? How have we failed in these areas? What do we learn from that? What do we need to ensure doesn't happen again? And I think that's where we are on a losing streak at the moment. It is very depressing. So many things are going backwards, and I don't see anything in sight for changing it. And the over expenditure, whether it's capital or operating in the governments, is being met by more taxes. That can only go on for a certain period of time because we need the investment and we're driving it away. We need the investment to grow the pie, generate more jobs, generate more profitability, and generate more tax receipts as a result of that. We've got to turn that around, and we've got to learn, as you pointed, from what are the things that we've been allowing to happen to drive us in the wrong direction. One more? Yep.
Thanks, Andrew. Craig Henderson from Worley. My question comes to that topic of productivity, and I'm going to ask you for a silver bullet of AI. In the context of competing for capital, challenge policy environments, is there something that we need to be thinking about that AI can help solve any of these issues? I'm keen for your perspective, because often you can't get through an event without talking about it. So apologies, everyone, for ringing up at the end.
I think it is really important. The issue I have, you hear the negative sides to it and concerns. I think we have to look for the positive sides to it and learn from those. Okay, they've done this in this industry, what can we do? I was at a talk by Steve Hasker, the head of Thomson Reuters, who's the biggest wholesale media business in the world. They don't publish anything unless they have 3 independent sources confirming it. So they missed all the scoops and the M&A and all that sort of stuff. But he was talking about he's got 25,000 journalists right across the world, but he's also got 1,500 lawyers. And I thought, bloody hell, how many lawyers do you need? But what they're doing is actually putting together, using AI, databases and algorithms, so that if someone a partner of the law firm goes to dinner and gets a phone call as they're going into dinner from a client saying, just signed up for this merger, can you get a document to me by tomorrow? And normally that partner would have rung an underling, and the underling would have grabbed some people and they would have worked through the night to get it. But now, with the work that they've done accessing AI and these databases, the partner rings the underling, gives them the details, and within 5 minutes there is a draft of the merger and acquisition agreement, and it has, as you roll down it, key questions. What jurisdiction do these 2 companies operate in? Blah, blah, blah. And then on any part of it, you can hover on it, and it will give you the reference documentation of how this has been put together. So amazing, it just blew my mind of what could be done with AI. Now, I'm sitting there going, yeah, but that's not what we've got. But what is it in our business, in our industry, that we can start using the corollary of that to actually work out how to do things better. Collecting the data, having it analysed. We all collect massive amounts of data which never see the light of day, but with AI we can mine it and we can get better value out of it. I think it is a real opportunity, and think of the productivity for that law firm putting together the M&A agreement. Amazing. Thank you.
I would like to call on Stephen Carlton, partner from White & Case, to deliver a vote of thanks for Andrew.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Stephen Carlton. I'm a corporate M&A partner from White & Case based in Melbourne. Apologies, another lawyer, Andrew. I'm here today to move the vote of thanks for Andrew and to thank him for his timely, consequential and observant address today. Andrew started off by stating that we meet today at a pivotal moment in time, and I think we can all see the truth in his words. His urgent call to action to the nation and our industry, and the need for resolve and restoration to stand up for this moment, no doubt rings true. Importantly, Andrew highlighted optimism for the future. If we as a country can navigate the perceptions and the gaps that impact our international standing in an increasingly geopolitical environment. There is a prosperous way through, but addressing productivity and industrial relations and tax reform, for example, in a serious way must feature on the agenda in order to clear those potential ways forward. Finally, Andrew's call to action on developing the critical minerals industry and lowering energy costs, I'm sure resonate for many, if not all of you in the room today, with his observations on Victoria's challenges of particular value in this discussion. Andrew, thank you for your time and insights today, and also your passion for the industry, our state, and the strengths underpinning our nation's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Some upcoming events from our JV partners, the AusIMM and Minerals Council of Australia, have been displayed on the screens throughout the lunch.